It's time for the Bleed Los Podcast with your hosts, Alonso and Juan, Alicia Del Valle, and the babyface gimmick in the sky, Roger.
BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, including pro and college hoops throughout the year. With up-to-the-minute odds, stats, and trends, you can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices. Head to BetOnline today to become part of the team, and remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here.
And we are back with another episode of the Bleed Los podcast, and Steve and I are back again, continuing from our last episode where we talked about the position player preview. Now we're moving on to the pitching side of things. We're going to talk about the starting rotations, the arms that are in there. We're going to talk about the bullpen, and then we'll touch on the closer as well at the end. But Steve, it's good to have you back. Like I said before, it's a lot of stuff to talk about. I think, like I mentioned before, the position player group was pretty much set. So those articles, they were a little bit easier to write because we kind of knew the guys that were going to be in there. But the starting rotation was the big thing the Dodgers had to work on, especially after the 2023 season. And we saw, the stats and everything that they needed to do some work for that rotation. Now entering 2024, there's a lot of new faces on the team in the pitching side of things. Anything that kind of caught your eye what the Dodgers did this offseason, especially with pitching?
The turnover is really remarkable. I mean, we went back to our 2023 preview and who was the starting rotation in 2023, it's almost a completely different cast of characters. So I don't know if I recall seeing this much turnover. Now, of course, some of it is injury, right? We didn't lose these guys. We got Dustin May's hurt, and Tony Gonsolin is hurt, and Clayton Kershaw is hurt and rehabbing. Walker Buehler is coming back. I mean, these are familiar names that Dodger fans are going to see eventually, but you're not going to see them in the rotation on opening day. That's for sure. And then the big pickups over the winter. Certainly did a lot to address that sort of pathetic starting rotation that we limped into the playoffs with. So, I mean, I'm glad they did a lot of work on that over the winter. So I feel pretty good about the starting rotation going in, and especially good knowing that, Buehler and Kershaw are looming.
Yeah. And then a lot of talk has been about the big three regarding Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and one Shohei Ohtani. But I kind of highlighted it with the high leverage article about the starting rotation, where it's kind of like another big three, where you got Tyler Glasnow, Bobby Miller, and then the new $325 million man in Yamamoto. It's a lot of upside looking at all the numbers into it. Kind of just going over everything that me and you've discussed and written before on Dodgersbeat about Yamamoto. I mean, what's not to like about the guy? He pretty much dominated the Japanese league and was only destined to come to the MLB. And the Dodgers seem to be extremely confident with his numbers. They have the advanced stats that they like, and they were confident enough to give him this much guaranteed money for a guy that is not thrown a pitch in the U.S. yet. And Tyler Glasnow, we know, I said at the beginning of the offseason, once I heard that the Rays were looking to ship him, I thought the Dodgers should have been right in on him right away. And funny enough, the Dodgers must have agreed with me. They must have read one of our articles or something went out and got that guy. And Bobby Miller is another guy where last year I was extremely high on Miller, and then him coming into his own last year, being arguably the Dodgers, ace minus Kershaw, who was battling health issues all year. He pretty much was the, rotation, especially once October hit, where there was arguments, including myself, where I was saying, hey, maybe he should get the ball in game one. Now stepping into 2024, how are you feeling about this new top three for the Dodgers rotation?
I'm feeling pretty good. I know I saw a lot of hand wringing on social media and a lot of people who said, oh, look at Yamamoto's ERA in the Cactus League. Oh, he's a big waste of money. He's another Hideki Irabu. But I don't see that happening. I think he's just too good. His stuff is too good. And if you look at what I mean, face facts, he did have a 9.0 ERA during spring training, but that was very limited sample size. And certainly in his second start, it was a lot of bleeders, a lot of seeing eye singles, things that what can you do? That's baseball kind of stuff. I mean, it wasn't like he was getting ripped all over the yard. And his third start wasn't quite as good as the first two, but still, I think Yamamoto is going to be just fine. I did spring training give you any pause?
No, I mean, I watched the second game while I was at work, and I knew the left side of the Dodgers infield defense didn't do him no favors that game. They had a couple of errors. I don't even think they were ruled errors, even though they hit the fielder's glove, looked like a routine play. And then a couple dribblers, like you said, that made their way through. It's not like he was giving up home runs left and right, exit velos out of the 110 mile per hour. Like he gave up cheap hits. The thing I like about him is that he had a lot of strikeouts in a short amount of time, and he pounds the strike zone. The only thing that seemed like he may have to work on is that it seems like the second and the third time through the order, they were seeing his fastball a little bit well. And this is a guy who has 80 plus command, according to Fangraphs. And that's just a guy who just, wherever you put it, he will pitch to it. And he was trying to get ahead in the count. So it's really a thing he's going to have to work on with the pitching coach, the catchers, and then himself. But I think he's going to be just fine. He has a 5-pitch mix. He will definitely still get the swing and miss stuff. It's just he may have to clean up some things here and there, but I still am along the lines that he may take a month or two to kind of fully adjust. And then once the latter half of the season gets here and October hits, the Dodgers and myself are just hoping that whatever we saw in the WBC and then in Japan translates and he can be the Dodgers ace come October.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, what you were mentioning about his command, I think, he's going to face a certain amount of comparison to, Clayton Kershaw, because Kershaw is a guy who pounds his own as well. And, the hitters think, if I don't get Kershaw on the first pitch or the second pitch, I'm dead. Right. I mean, for most of his career, that was it. Yeah. So they would tee off on him on that first pitch, and so you kind of knew very, very quickly if Kershaw had the good stuff or not, because if they were teeing off on that first pitch, you knew you didn't have it that night. Yamamoto kind of looked the same way. They were swinging on the first pitch. So I hope that he can maybe do a little more work with Will Smith and with Mark Pryor and work on his pitch mix and choices on the first pitch a little bit. And so maybe he doesn't get as predictable as they thought they seem to think he was in the first couple of spring training games, but we'll see soon enough, because his big debut is forthcoming, isn't it?
Yeah, that is true. Another guy that I'm interested to see how year 2 goes is Bobby Miller, because, there were some starts. There were some things that were bad that he happened, was giving up a little bit more runs. It didn't seem like he was getting too many swing and misses, but this is a guy that I've been high on, has a good 5 to 6 pitch mix, depending on how good his day is going. I'm looking forward to him taking the next step. I think his progression is going to continue, especially with the pitching coaches that are around him, the pitches that he has, the arsenal that he has, and then pretty much the demeanor of this guy. I've seen him in person quite a few times. I've talked to him in Washington, D.C. This guy seems like he wants to get better. How do you feel about year 2 for Bobby Miller?
Yeah, the interesting thing about Bobby Miller is he's still a little bit ahead of schedule, because last year, we were thinking coming out of spring training that it was going to be Pepio who was going to be the starter, but Pepio got injured and then Stone was ineffective and Grove didn't really get the job done. So it was Miller who really stepped into the breach and, kind of forced himself to be that starter. So I think that shows a lot about his character, shows a lot about his grit. He's a really gritty player, and that's what I like about him. He really commands the mound. And, for a first-year player, that he never seems like he's overmatched, and that's a really good thing to have in a pitcher. There's a little Walker Buehler comp to me because he wants that ball and he wants to challenge those hitters, and I like his makeup. So I think I'm with you. I think we're going to see good things out of Bobby Miller this year.
Yeah, and then closing out with the high leverage, top 3 of the Dodgers rotation is Tyler Glasnow, where if you look at the history, he has struggled with just staying on the field. If you look into it a little bit more, it seems like it was one long lingering injury that he finally got solved when he ultimately had Tommy John surgery, where since then, last season he pitched a career high 120 innings pitched, and he says that his arm and himself is just the healthiest he's been so far in his career. So with all that said, we know the type of guy that he can be. We've seen some of his spring training starts. I believe his most recent one against, I think it was the Guardians, where he went deep into the game, got multiple strikeouts, had another sim game against the White Sox, had a lot of strikeouts that game. How excited are you to see Glasnow take the mound game 1 in Korea? And are you confident in Glasnow staying healthy for a full 162?
I'm very stoked about Glasnow, to be honest. He was just, his spring training is spring training, but 0.9 ERA, 0.7 WHIP. That's a guy who wants to be your number one. I'm not sure that he's going to end up being the number one all the way through the year, but he definitely has the stuff for it. And boy, hitters were just looking lost in spring training against him. So I really have a good feeling about this. I was a little iffy when they made the deal, because I thought, oh boy, whenever Glasnow played against the Dodgers when he was in the World Series, it didn't seem like the Dodgers had that much trouble solving him. Yeah. But maybe it was a lot to do with those injuries that he was not quite over yet, and he was just sort of giving 94% or whatever. So seeing him completely healthy, he's scary out there in that mound. That stuff is nasty. So I'm if I would say, if I had to pick an ERA leader out of the gate, I would say probably it's going to end up being Glasnow that will end up leading the team in ERA for starters.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said. I've made it known on social media where I think, until proven otherwise, I think Tyler Glasnow is the actual ace of the Dodgers. If he can put together like 160 to 180 innings, I think, depending on all the stuff that we've seen last year with, the strikeouts, hopefully they carry over, the ability to limit runs, I think he will have a low ERA as well. I think this is a guy that could actually be in the top 3 to top 5 in Cy Young conversations by the end of the season, and the Dodgers are banking on him being fully healthy. In terms of the article, I did rank it as a kind of B+ for our Dodgersbeat grade, just because there is the health issues. There is the Yamamoto translating over from the MPB to the MLB. And then there is the issues of a sophomore slump for Bobby Miller, because on paper, it looks extremely good. But there's always that chance in baseball where there could be some, scuffs in the road. Something could go wrong. It's never a perfect season in terms of injuries for the Dodgers. So that's the reason why I'm a little skeptical now. But I think by season's end, this 3 will probably be top 3 in baseball in terms of pitching all across the board. And hopefully, unlike last year, will be a nice, strong 3 to go into the NLDS.
Yeah. Well, last year's NLDS was just it was just
I don't want to remember
starting pitching. It's trauma, bring back post PTSD from watching that. It was, I remember I was, this quick story. I was driving somewhere as game 1 was starting, and it was I couldn't even get through the first inning before I had to turn it off. It was Oh no, I can't do this.
Well, yeah. So obviously, the Dodgers rotation isn't just three guys. We actually kind of went a different route compared to years past, where we kind of saw the amount of arms that the Dodgers have. So we'll kick it off first with the veteran arms that are on the team. There are a lot of guys that are either coming back from injury or returning from previous injuries, or one that's currently injured right now. And there was three guys I highlight in that article, and that was Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, and James Paxton, who are kind of each battling their own type of story. Walker Buehler is coming back from his second career Tommy John surgery. Has this seems like this buildup of his, comeback has been going on for about a year and a half now. There was rumblings last year that he was going to be coming back. They ended up pushing it back to this year. And now we know he's going to be a delayed start. So I'm thinking maybe May for him. Kershaw, we already know the issue. He had the shoulder issues. He finally went under the knife and got his first, surgery of his career, and is expected to be out until, I would say, at minimum until mid to late July or early August. And then James Paxton, who, if you look at the guy, last year he battled injuries, with his hip and his knee, but he's also had some arm issues in the past. So looking at those guys, I'm kind of interested in what you kind of think of this group of guys that can help out the Dodgers, not necessarily right away, other than Paxton, but, throughout the entire season. How do you feel about that group of veteran guys there?
Well, I think Bueller is going to be Walker Buehler again. I given his age, where he is, yes, it's a second Tommy John, but I know the kind of competitor he is, and I know he's going to do everything in his power to get back to his abilities. And we kind of remember that in 22, before he got the surgery, he was not quite himself all year, right? It was like, yay, Walker Buehler's pitching, and he had that complete game in Arizona, like in the middle of the year. And then after that, it just was sort of so. It wasn't Walker Buehler-ish at all. And, if you remember, he was heavy in the Cy Young conversation the year before. So Walker Buehler of 22 was just sort of like, well, that's okay. I think his ERA was around 4 or something like that in 22. So, you could see something was wrong. He didn't seem right the whole year. And so he got the thing fixed. I think you're going to see a more vintage Walker Buehler, the guy who got the ball on game 163 in 2018, the guy who, got out of that bases loaded, nobody out jam against Atlanta. That Walker Buehler, to steal a phrase from Tom Lasorda, the bulldog, he is so often on the mound. And I have a good feeling about Walker Buehler this year.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Walker Buehler is a guy that they have sorely missed, especially in October, where this guy has been the Dodgers' best pitcher. You look at his postseason stats across the board. He is one of the better pitchers come October. So the Dodgers desperately need that arm fully healthy, hopefully, to be that, third or fourth starter, honestly, in this rotation right now as constructed. Another guy who's joining the team this year with the absence of a left-handed starter is James Paxton. He's coming over from Boston. He has had some really good years with the Yankees, the Mariners. He now comes to LA on that, that 1-year deal. How do you feel about James Paxton coming to the Dodgers? Do you think it's more of a bridge role until Kershaw comes back, or do you think the Dodgers envision him being their fifth starter for the entire year?
Well, it would be nice to have two lefties in the starting rotation. But I think once Buehler comes back, I'm not even sure that he stays in the rotation after that. I mean, depending on how Sheehan and Stone and Grove and these guys pitch in the first month or two of the season. I'd like him to surprise me, but I don't have a lot of confidence in Paxton. I don't think it's going to be a Noah Syndergaard kind of situation, but I mean he has had brilliant seasons. I mean that season in Seattle before he went to the Yankees, he was fantastic. And I'd like to see that Paxton again. We haven't seen much of him. He's been kind of. Has he pitched much at all in spring training? How many innings has he pitched in spring training? He
Not
has
sure
pitched one game, 2 innings.
Yeah.
And
I know he's been on the backfields, and he's
Yeah.
currently in Arizona right now.
Yeah, he's in Arizona now. So I don't. He's still a wild card as far as I'm concerned. I have no expectations, either good or bad. I'm hoping he's fantastic. I mean, there is a good pitcher in there somewhere. So hopefully, and Mark Pryor has done miracles with others, and I don't think it would even be a miracle at this with Paxton, because Paxton's a good pitcher.
Yeah.
So he just needs to kind of rediscover what he was, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think Paxton's a serviceable arm. I think he's going to be exactly what the Dodgers need, especially in the first half of the season. And that's just someone to take the ball every 5th day. As long as Paxton can remain healthy, the big thing about him is that his health issues are nothing to do with his arm that he had Tommy John surgery on a few years ago. They're just peculiar knee and hip injuries that ended up sidelining his season last year. The Dodgers' expectations for him probably aren't extremely high. They just want him to, eat innings until that second half of the season, which with the trade deadline, pitchers coming back, we don't know if he'll even be in the rotation come the second half of the year.
I mean, he is 35, and he's probably 4 or 5 years removed from his best year. So we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, I think he's good for now.
Yeah. And then I honestly, closing out on it, is I feel like the reason why the Dodgers needed a left-handed starter was because of the absence of Kershaw. I mean, for the first time in my entire time of watching Dodgers baseball, Kershaw has been a vital piece in that rotation. This is the first time in a long time where you're not really thinking of, he's kind of like an afterthought, because while he does want to come back in August or whenever his rehab is officially done, there is the possibility that either he doesn't rebound or he just doesn't pitch at all. So I want everything to work out. I want Kershaw to come back. I want him to join this rotation, and I want him to get another chance in October, to rewrite whatever happened last year. Are you confident that he will be back in this rotation at some point this year, or is it the reason that he put on an option to come back in 2025 is because, he is getting up there in age and he just had his first major surgery? Are you concerned with that at all?
Well, it is concerning, the fact that he got the surgery at all gives me some confidence that he feels that he can do it still, because, it would have been very easy to say, that's it, guys, Hall of Fame career. Get the ceremony ready to retire number 22, and we'll see you in 5 years in Cooperstown. He could have done that, but he didn't do that. And the fact that he didn't, and that he wanted to come back to the Dodgers, not the Texas Rangers, the Dodgers, is that I think he says, this is maybe my last rodeo. I'm going to give it all I got to get back on the field, to get in the rotation, and to get into October and to win the World Series with the team that I've given half of my life to.
Yeah, I honestly would not want nothing better. I hope Kershaw gets the pitch. It sounds like he is progressing pretty well with his throwing program that he started right before he signed that contract. But other than that, we really haven't heard much about Kershaw. I assume we're going to hear more updates as the months go along, especially I would say once June and July hit. That's when Dave Roberts and company are going to get a plethora of questions about Kershaw's status. But I hope he does come back. But that kind of goes.
I would think August.
Yeah, that kind of goes to your next article that you've already kind of mentioned on about the arms that are kind of vying for a spot in this rotation. There are a bunch of young guys, depth pieces. They each have like experience starting games. Kind of go over the article you wrote about all these guys that pretty much the Dodgers can pick and choose from, whether there's injuries or not.
Right. Yeah, I mean, certainly the Dodgers are in a good spot this year because they have, I think, three really good young pitchers. And I feel like, 2023 was kind of a trial by fire. They were just sort of thrown in there, ready or not, guys. You're a big league pitcher now, and some of them reacted better than others. Obviously, we talked about Bobby Miller already. Bobby Miller, rose to the occasion. Gavin Stone, Michael Grove had less luck at it than perhaps they were hoping, it's kind of a shame. I know it was necessary, but I did like Ryan Pepio a lot, and I'm sorry that he's not among that group of young pitchers anymore. So we'll see how he does over in Tampa because they're low on arms there now in the Western Florida area. So we'll see how they do. I like Ryan Pepio a lot, so I'll miss him, but. Getting back to the article that I wrote, I think it looks pretty much a done deal now because Emmett Sheehan is out, and he won't be starting the season on the active roster. I think he'll be back soon enough, but I think it's Gavin Stone who's going to be the fifth starter for this team this year. I feel like he's just been so good in spring that I think that, and especially since we saw in Korea Grove, who pitched fantastic in the first exhibition game in Korea, almost had an immaculate inning. I feel like since they kind of tipped their hand, giving Grove those 2 innings in the exhibition game, that it's not going to be Grove pitching on the 5th day when the season begins. It'll be Stone. I feel good about that. I think he's ready. There was some talk about him tipping pitches last year, and I think he's cleaned up his delivery a little bit and he was looking really, really nice in spring training. So yeah. Hopefully that carries over to the regular season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Gavin Stone get another crack at it. It seemed like there was some issues, was he tipping pitches last year? He mentioned that he had some sort of, I think, lower body injury, I think like his foot or something, and kind of tweaked some things with that. And I just think the demeanor looks different on the mound. Last year they were hitting his fastball and changeup extremely hard. He didn't have an out pitch. This year it's a complete 180. It seems like he has better command. His changeup is looking better. And I feel like he can roll with the spring training success and then be the 5th starter for the Dodgers, which is what I'm looking forward to. Don't know if it'll be a all season thing. But if he does well, it'll be hard. It'll be like Bobby Miller last year. It'll be hard to take the keys away from him. Let him drive the car. If he's doing well, the Dodgers are doing well, don't break it. Keep it the same. So that could be the thing with Gavin Stone in 2024. Other than that, we're kind of shifting to the bullpen where there's so many arms to the bullpen. We could spend probably maybe like an hour just talking about it. We have a few articles posted on Dodgersbeat.com. Kind of go over the high leverage and the low leverage guys. I'm curious to you, entering this season, looking back to 2023, the Dodgers bullpen kind of went through, a lot. In the first half of the season, they were historically bad. Had their worst ERA in the franchise history and playing in LA. It was like over 5 at one point. And then the second half, they kind of corrected themselves. And then come October, they were pretty much the only guys that came to play. They were keeping the team in games the entire series for that 3-game series. Are you confident that success from the second half of the season is going to translate to this year, especially since there's a lot of returning guys? Ryan Brazier's coming back. Joe Kelly's coming back, and they're expecting the reemergence of Blake Trinan, who was arguably their best reliever in 2020 and 2021, and Daniel Hudson, who was officially added to the roster the other day. Other than those names, you can go spit any that you have faith in, but how are you viewing the Dodgers bullpen as we enter?
Well, I think there are two people that we might see do some spot starting out of the bullpen. I mean, certainly if Grove starts in the bullpen, we're going to see him start from time to time.
Yeah.
I feel 80% that Grove is going to make the team out of camp here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yarborough, we're going to see Ryan Yarborough start some games, I have a feeling, or at least do some long relief. I think and being a left-hander, and we have a real lack of left-handers in that bullpen right now, that Yarborough is going to be an important piece getting left-handed hitters out. And especially when we get to left-handed hitting heavy lineups, Ryan Yarbrough is going to come in very handy. Kyle Hurt is interesting. He didn't get a lot of play last year, but he did start some games in Oklahoma City, and he had a kind of a flashy beginning in 2023 when I think he struck out like Soto, Machado, and Bogarts in order on his first inning on the mound, which was, not unimpressive. So Kyle Hurt will be another guy to watch. I'm not sure Hurt makes the team coming out of camp. He's in Korea now, but I don't think he's going to end up on the opening day roster. But he's a guy to watch. So those two guys are going to be interesting because they do have some spot starter bullpen games in them. As far as, I'm very curious about Blake Trinan. He's looked very good in camp. So he kind of annoyed me with refusing to get the surgery back when he should have gotten it.
Yeah.
I like the power of prayer too, but some things need a doctor. So I was a little annoying that when he came back, he wasn't able to perform well, and he didn't do well in the San Diego series, and then missed all year last year. He and Hudson are older guys too. So we'll see if their good stuff is still with them. It seems like in both cases it is. I think the early returns are good on both of those guys. So you could see, and a guy we haven't even mentioned is Bruiser Gratterall, who had a great year last year.
Yeah.
So you can see people trying to navigate. First you get Gratterall, then you get Trinan, then you get Hudson, and then here comes Evan Phillips to close out the game. That's the last four innings of the game with some very, very good arms. Now, they're all right-handed arms, so that can be an issue. But try to hit Trinan and get back to me. That guy is nasty, and Evan Phillips somehow gets it done. He's one of those guys who you look at him and you don't know his numbers, and you say, oh, okay, whatever, because he's not throwing 98 high gas at anybody, but he just gets the job done, and he's not. I don't know if he's at peak level right now. I think he needs a little more ramping up. He got knocked around a little bit in the first Korea game. So we'll see how it goes, but so far so good. I think the bullpen is going to be in pretty good shape. Who exactly is in that bullpen will be a good question. I know you're thinking that they're going to carry 13 pitchers and 13 position players to start the season. That means some of those guys who are in Korea are going to have to start elsewhere, and especially since there's a couple of guys who aren't in Korea who we know are going to be on the opening day roster.
There's a lot of guys.
Paxson is not there, and somebody else is not there either.
Brewster's not active.
Brewster's not there. So those guys definitely are on the roster. So,
Yeah.
We'll see. A guy, and also a guy who we absolutely need and we have to watch this year is Alex Vesia. I mean, we need a left-hander that we can count on. And boy, Vesia, he went through it last year, didn't he?
Yeah.
His second half was much better than his first, but you can see Dave Roberts was just shaking his head sometimes when he was watching.
Yeah,
Vesia.
I actually put Vesia in the high leverage category just because he is a lefty specialist. That is what he should be for the Dodgers.
They'll need him there. Yeah.
You look in October, that's what the Dodgers' eyes are on. You look at the Diamondbacks, you look at the Phillies, and you look at the Atlanta Braves. Those are three teams, NL teams, that you will potentially face. They have a lot of lefty guys on there. You got Harper, you got Olsen, you got Corbin Carroll. These are guys that he will need to step up and get these guys out. He's done it before. It seems like the past 2 seasons have been pretty unkind to him, but I'm hoping a comeback year for him. One, before we kind of end the episode, I'm interested to see how you view Ryan Brazier. This is the guy that took pretty much all offseason to sign or re-sign with the Dodgers. And a lot of people across social media are kind of pointing the finger at him being that candidate that's going to have a huge regression. And so far in spring, he hasn't looked too sharp. He was pretty much an ultimate guy in the Dodgers bullpen last year. Only gave up 3 runs for them the entire time he was there. Are you expecting some sort of regression for him at all, or are you okay with it? Spring training stats, you just throw him out the window.
Well, I'd like to throw him out the window because, gosh, he was so good for the Dodgers. What did he do what was his ERA in the regular season for the Dodgers after? But I mean, he was so bad for Boston. That's the troubling part, right? A 0.70 ERA for the Dodgers and over 38.2 innings. Boy, that would be nice if that could be replicated. I feel like with the Dodgers pitching coaches, you sort of unlock something, and especially if you're like Brazier, where you're pretty secure in your position in the roster, that maybe you just come to spring training to say, okay, I'm going to work on my pitch in the upper quadrant today, or so maybe he's just working on stuff, but he did get hit around a little. His ERA was over 8 in spring training games, so that was not exactly, but I mean Yamamoto's was over 9, so again we kind of have to erase the board and see what happens in the regular season when things count, because there's a lot of things that happen in spring training that we can take with a grain of salt. So we'll see. I hope Ryan Brazier can be what he was last year. I mean, even if you double his ERA, that's still under 2, right?
Yeah.
Triple his ERA, it's 2.1, right? So even if there is regression, if we start at he's not going to have a 0.70 ERA over the entire year. Oh, and speaking of under 1 ERAs, think about JP Fireeisen, right? JP Fireisen's ERA in Tampa before he was injured that year was 0.00. He went 24 innings and didn't give up a thing before he got hurt. So I mean but that was a long-term investment. He was out all last year. And here he is ready, and he hasn't looked that great in spring, but we'll see. I mean, if you can get something, because in Milwaukee he was very, very good as well. So that's a guy we haven't really talked about much, but I think he's on the roster. He'll be on the opening day roster. I pretty sure, and we'll see what he's got in him this season. So there's a lot of guys: Hudson, Fireeisen, Trinan, who have the ability to be fantastic, but are coming off injuries. So that's the wild card in this. Do these guys come back at full strength, or is it not there?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this entire episode, the pitching, there's a lot of depth. There's just a lot of question marks around the health of that depth. So, but other than that, I feel like the Dodgers are in a really good spot in terms of the starting rotation, the back end of the rotation, and even the bullpen and closer as well. So, honestly, if you want more in-depth looks at pretty much everything we've talked about these past 2 episodes, be sure, to check out Dodgersbeat.com. Go ahead and read some of the preview articles. We go a lot more in depth. We got a lot more stats. We got their fan graphs projections as well. And if you're interested in joining, we are looking for more writers and contributors to not just the Believe Those podcast, but also Dodgers Beat as well. So if you're interested in that. But other than that, I think this was a great 2 episodes, very informative, kind of getting a lot of guys ready for the 2024 season, which is hoping to be a very special year in Dodgers blue. Any closing comments from you, Steve?
Well, I am very excited. I mean, the Dodgers have a way of disappointing us, and they've proven expectations don't necessarily translate into results. But boy, this is a damn good team, and everybody's up in arms about the Mookie Lux situation, but that is, we should have that worry. That's the biggest worry we have. We'll be fine. We'll be fine because this is a very good baseball team, and I think that most people are putting them at like the over under like 101, something like that. I think I'd probably take the over on that. I don't know how you're feeling. You're feeling like 100, 105, something like that, maybe?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So I would probably take the over on that, but there's just so many pitchers on this roster. They have the depth, they have everything. I think they'll do just fine this season. And it's just the health that's the big thing for me, and that's for every baseball team out there. So as long as the Dodgers can do all that, I think they'll be fine.
All right, Tyler Glasnow's Cy Young 2024. What do you think?
I think that has a really.
Should
good
I
ring
engrave
on
the plaque right now?
I wouldn't go that far, but you can get ready for it though.
Okay, I'll decide it at least.
All right, but that'll do it for this episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and turn on the notifications, and we will see you on the next one.
So long.
This episode has been brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here.